Shalom. This week we are in Parashah Bishalach. That means and he let go. And it is the Torah portion that has to do with Israel leaving Egypt and where Israel left Egypt, crossed the Red Sea, and had the conflict with Pharaoh and his men at the Red Sea. And then the second battle they faced was where they had to face Amalek. So that's the start and the end of the Torah portion. So it has to do with two battles. And it's also in context of moving out, and they move out. Now the word shalach means to move out, to let go, and it also means to appoint, which is a similar thing to anointing. So the application is that they move from one area to another, from one stage to another within their journey, and their journey just started. Just to recap from last week's parashah, which is very important as a foundational starting point, is the context of Passover and unleavened bread. The first two festivals was revealed within the timing of the 9th and the 10th plague or sign. Now the 9th plague give us the starting point. Why do you need the Passover? The plague or the sign was darkness. And darkness is basically the absence of light. It's not something in itself. It exists because something is not there. And if Yahweh is not present in the land or in your life, then there's darkness. So Passover allowed people to move from darkness into the light. But in this case, we see the light in the form of hail and fire and all sorts of things. And thereafter, we see the battle of Israel and Egypt, or Egypt actually attacking Israel, the deliverance, and then they end up in the wilderness. So the light is not always comfortable. The light is a new phase, which you can experience as a wilderness. So to be set free from bondage doesn't mean that everything is hunky-dory, green grass, beautiful flowers, beautiful rivers flowing, birds singing, everything is just peaceful. No, it means that you are going to the next phase of purification. Now, shalach has the letter shin, and it ends with the letter chet, and in the middle is the lamed. Now, we all know that lamed means learning. It's a letter that looks like the shepherd's staff. So Moses was the shepherd that led the people out, and they are entering into the chet because they enter from left to right. So chet is the first letter they encounter, which is the blood on the doorpost, the Passover, blood of the lamb, and they enter into that chet, or the purpose of the chet is for them to access the lamed, to access the shepherd. On a spiritual sense, the blood allow you to access Yeshua Mashiach, our shepherd, that will lead us into what? Into fire. And that's exactly what they saw after the commandment of the Passover. They saw death of the firstborn, which is the climax depicted by the 7th plague, which we discussed last parashah, where hail and fire is the culmination of all 9 plagues, all in one, with the added hail and fire. And that is basically why I refer to the shin of the light that you enter into is a place of fire or purging. Now we know that water is the medium that cleanses, that washes. It's a very gentle medium. It's nice and cool and it's fresh and it can refresh you. But fire is extremely uncomfortable. It's not designed for the physical or for the flesh. Fire is a spiritual attribute that has to do and has a link to holiness, and it's also a link to Yahweh. So if you want to become echad, with Yahweh, you need to be able to withstand the fire or the spiritual heat or the spiritual warmth of holiness, because that's the character of the Father. He is a consuming fire. Why is that? Because the opposite of the shin, on the other side of the chet from Shalach, is darkness, which is the 9th sign or the 9th plague. So it's total opposite of darkness, and it's the solution to the problem of darkness. But this solution will scorch you, will purge you from darkness. And that's what the whole wilderness experience is about. It's walking in the fire of Yahweh's holiness, or learn to walk in holiness and be transformed. Now, the wilderness is a place that's not designed for the flesh. It's designed for the soul to flourish and for the flesh to die. Now, we already looked at that concept when we looked at Jacob and Esau, where it depicted the two parts of your soul, the nefesh, which is the animal soul, which is the same word to describe animals when Yahweh created animals, and then the neshama, we can refer to as the breath of life, which is the spirit, the ruach of Yahweh, the breath being transferred into man when Yahweh blew his breath into Adam's nostrils. So we see the breath of Yahweh, the fire of Yahweh, is the first step of becoming echad with Yahweh again, becoming one with him again. And that is an extremely uncomfortable process. So just want to recap: liberation from slavery, which is being a slave in Egypt, where they built bricks, and the bricks were used to build the jail that kept them captive. Now think about that. What bricks do you have in your life that you use to build a jail for yourself, that keep you captive? Can it be a hobby? Can it be something you're very fanatical about? Something that consumes all your time? Now, the wisdom is always within balance. We see that in the menorah pattern. Every time you lose balance, that's when you start building bricks. And the thing you lose the balance to is the thing that enslaves you and the jail that you're busy building with those bricks. So always be mindful of whatever you do to maintain balance. Doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have a hobby, not allowed to research things or to watch things or whatever. Always keep the balance. And on the other side of the balance, it's rather better to lean the balance more towards Yahweh's things, His word, His ways, thinking about His things. Specifically, the first thing in the morning is to think about Him, think about His greatness, His goodness, be mindful and grateful of everything He's given you, and then have that right balance as you're going to work or whatever you do that day. So those are the few thoughts I want to leave with you today. So tomorrow I'll probably continue with a few more thoughts as I prepare for this next parashah, Beshalach. I hope you have a lovely week and a lovely day. Speak to you soon. Shalom.